Yeah.
Yeah, intros become so much more meaningful.
Where are you?
Me in London.
Yeah, it's London. Okay, well, we've been on calls where you have dialed in from like some sort of little food shack in a country nobody had actually heard of. We've had you dial in while you were getting your feet massaged one time with rice, something like that. Like it's
Chris, you're
okay.
I was stretching my legs. That's true.
You sound very scratchy, Chris. You sound very scratchy.
Well, thank you, Jerry. We'll have to see if it picks up a little.
No, it's not you. It's static that's coming across on your screen.
Okay. Well, I'll bow out and bow back in, but I'll let you two chat about where in the world Roy is.
Okay.
Jerry, since I last saw you, I saw you like a month and a half ago on September 26th. And then since it's been from San Francisco to Atlanta, so like in a month and a week to New York, to Delaware, Maryland, North Carolina, Miami, Poland, Lisbon, and now London.
Good Lord.
And on Sunday it's going to be Krakow. It sounds cool, but it's actually when I like to travel to a place where I'm like there for a month. I'm settled in, I'm good, I'm exploring a new place, like I'm working during the day and then, on weekends I explore. But here it's a bit exhausting when like the bed is different, the Airbnb is different, the luminosity of like the light like just wakes you up. So it's a bit tiring.
Yeah. But you're adding a lot of miles, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
There we go. How's that? Can you hear my audio?
Slightly better, Chris.
Okay. Roy's taking. It's getting hot in here. Roy's getting undressed for the interview. All right. Well, we're running live. Is it too staticky for me to do an intro? Should we just jump in?
You're okay, I guess.
Well, look, I tell you what, Jerry, why don't you do the introduction of the show? Tell everybody who we are.
Oh no.
Start talking to Roy, and I'm gonna disconnect and reconnect.
Okay, disconnect, reconnect, and then we'll do it.
Well, we're already doing it. We're live right now. It's already going.
I got it. But you got to do your bump thing or whatever. But Roy, so it's great. It's great to see you for sure. And it has been just over a month, I guess, that we were together in San Francisco, and one of the most beautiful spots. I thought it was really an excellent move on the part of Code Signal to actually have something there. I've since talked to Tigran for a few minutes as well, so it's kind of cool. He's really an interesting character for sure. As are you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've known each other for what? Just a few years, 5, 6, 7 years, really?
Honestly, the first time I heard about you was when I was with Holtzman, Josh Holtzman, who had the incubator in New York City that Jonathan Kestenbaum then took over.
Got it.
Talent Tech Labs. And before you had come to the office, they had put a photo of you framed on the wall with flowers.
Yes.
And they called it the Jerry Crispin Shrine. I'm like,
yeah, I know. It was really great. I tried to put a little box that people could put money into so that we could give to the
instead
poor.
Of dead flowers.
And then the other thing I wanted was votive candles, so that when I'm dead, they could put more money in to light the candles, around the shrine. I thought it would be kind of cool.
But it's been that long. It's been that long.
Money collected.
I mean, that whole journey.
Yeah, that Steve Levy will keep that alive someday. So you're back, Chris.
Are they switching the shrine out to be Steve's?
Oh, and you sound great.
I think I'm back. We'll see how it works.
I don't know what ended up happening to the shrine, but that was my first time meeting Jerry, and he was just cool, calm, and collected. And he had seen a lot. That was, I think, right around the times where I don't know if you were teaching or it was a little after you were teaching at Cornell,
Yeah.
and then you were about to start the Candidate Experience Awards. So
Oh,
it was around
okay.
that day.
Yeah. So that goes back a decade or so, for sure.
That's right.
Cool. Okay. Very cool.
Well, okay,
So I
so
figured,
let's kind of jump in. So for those who joined us, we're going to keep bandwidth at a minimum today. For those who've joined us here on the Recruiting Community Podcast Show, I am your host, Chris Hoyt. We've got Jerry Crispin in here who joins in from time to time from the Peanut Gallery, and we have a fantastic guest who. Roy, is it your first time? Is it your first time on this? I don't think it's first time on the podcast, is it?
Second time. The first time was when we had launched Recruiters Recruiting Recruiters.
That's right. That's right. That was quite some time ago. Well, so I met Roy, I think when he was still at Smart Recruiters, and but this whole Jobs for Humanity thing, I think, was just really starting to take off. So Roy, why don't you give us kind of an escalator pitch for those who may not know who you are? Why don't you kind of tell us who is Roy and why should we be paying attention to Roy today? And then I think we kind of jump in because you're doing some really cool stuff, and I think we should talk about it.
Dude, thank you. Like the who is Roy part, I don't like talking too much about myself, so I'm just gonna stick to facts. I was raised in Lebanon, moved to the US when I was 17 years old, went to Virginia Tech, and then spent the next 20 years in the US, mostly in recruitment tech. Had a first startup called FreshGrad to help people identify what is the right career path for you based on your natural skills and interests. Failed at that 4 years later. But then that really got me into Smart Recruiters because I used my own algorithm to tell me what are the best jobs for me. And joined Smart Recruiters at the seed stage, pre-revenue, and saw it grow all the way to where it is today. An extraordinary product, to be honest. And helped build the product, the marketplace, the conferences. While building the conferences, Hiring Success grew to a few thousand people, multi-day conferences, and I deep dove into what diversity and inclusion means, really diving into people from all walks of life. So I got to volunteer in prisons for 15 to 20 days at Pelican Bay State Prison.
Wow.
Got to see men get rehabilitated from it. Got to work with Lighthouse for the Blind and spend time there to get a sense of really that invisible divide that we don't realize that 1 in 25 people on Earth have low vision or are blind. Yet I'd be hard pressed to find anyone who's fully sighted who 4% of their friends are blind. So there is that big divide, even though that the Lighthouse for the Blind is on in San Francisco, it's on Market and 7th. Like it's smack in the middle of Civic Center. But people don't know it and they don't end up seeing it, even though once you pay attention, you start seeing blind people walking all over. But and so the idea was, how can you get them jobs? And people from all walks of life, returning citizens, blinds, refugees, single parents, the elderly, the neurodivergent. And so that's what Jobs for Humanity is. It's an expression of, basically an employment platform where any employer can post jobs, or we can post their jobs on the platform, as long as, and Jerry harps on it, Chris harps on it, there's a code of conduct where you are going to give a good candidate experience and you're going to get back to candidates. If you do, you're welcome. You don't, never mind. And then where job seekers can come in and feel safe and know that, hey, these are jobs where I have been pre-welcomed, that I can apply. And then comes the part where you connect the two. Yes, there is, a matching algorithm that can go based on skills, but there's an efficient practical training that employers could be given in an hour, to be honest, and then applied over a couple of hours where they come and train people. Yes, it's that simple. You can literally give diversity hiring training, everything through the talent acquisition funnel and fair onboarding with enough adequate information so that you can create a safe space within an hour. But then in comes through one ear, out through the other. If you don't practice it, then you're going to forget it. So that's where then we pair you with a couple of job seekers in your field of work, in your city, so that you can practice what you just learned and internalize everything. And from there,
So let me make sure I'm hearing you right. So you're talking about a 1-hour training session that will establish a baseline, right? A level set, a minimum requirement to deliver an adequate, if not favorable, candidate experience and improve your DE&I hiring initiatives. We see a lot of organizations put their recruiters and even their hiring managers through this. And we've seen a couple who've done a really nice job of making sure that they certify and recertify on an ongoing basis for this piece. Because I think what you're saying, Roy, and I agree with you, is that if we just show it to you once and say, off you go, it doesn't really stick.
Yeah. You're not going to memorize it. And we could even do, if you're curious about this, like, holy shit, an hour? I can give you a 5-minute elevator pitch on any one of the communities, like you name it. And then I can just share a 5-minute pitch on training. That'll get you 30, 40%.
I want to go through the hour. I want to go through the training.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Pick your community. Options are neurodivergent, refugees, blind and low vision.
I want to go through all of them.
Okay. Jerry wants them all.
Okay. All right. I am going to walk you through. Well,
not necessarily now, but tell me how I get to do that later on.
I will take you through. I'll take you through refugees, for example. Okay. Just because. Or honestly, do you think our audience would be most interested in refugees, blind and low vision, or neurodivergent?
Let's do the blind and low vision, because we were talking about that earlier. Yeah. And then if we've got a link, let's share that and we'll send it out to the watchers and listeners for each of them, and talk a little bit about that. But let's hear the pitch on blind low vision.
You got it. I'm going to put it in the private chat so you can share it with everyone. Here's blind and low vision. You can click on it and you can just toggle to any of the other trainings.
All right, I'll drop that in the chat while you're giving us the pitch.
Okay. All right. Let's start off with. I'm going to try to do this. All right. It's 4:12 my time here in London. I'm going to try to, by the 30-minute mark, in the next 18 minutes, you're going to learn who's considered visually impaired, what are the top 3 challenges they face, and how do you address them? What are the top 3 challenges hiring managers face? How do you address them? What are the best practices during the interview, and how do you offer a fair interview? How to look for skill and potential during the interview. If you don't hire and you still want to help, how can you do that? And what are the best onboarding best practices?
Okay.
All right, here goes. Did you know, first of all, who is considered visually impaired? That 285 million people worldwide are visually impaired, among which 40 million are blind. That's about 4% of the world population on 8 billion people. Wow. The unemployment rate in the US, can you guess roughly what it is?
Across the board, or just for those that are visually impaired?
No, across the board.
3.5%, 4%, something like that.
Yeah. Unemployment rate for the blind is 36%. So we're talking about 6 times the national, no, 9 times, almost 10 times the national average. So the 285 million people can be classified into blindness and low vision. Blindness means I cannot see anything. And then low vision means, first of all, it's a spectrum, but generally speaking, its sight is extremely limited. But some of it is, usable. Now, what are the tools that I use in order to be able to see? So, if the assistive technologies I use, if I'm blind, it's a screen reader. So it converts digital text into synthesized speech. JAWS and NVDA are the most common ones. So if you've got documents, system tools, check the accessibility on your phone or on your computer, there is text-to-speech. That is kind of, I would say, more modern than Braille, because Braille is just going to be a bit slower than to be able to have someone, convert a visual format into an auditory format through screen readers. For low vision, you've got magnifiers. So the magnifiers like Zoom Text, Magic, these would then allow you to, if you hit Command plus on your browser, the screen gets larger. Those that don't do that and it gets all wonky, that's not an accessible page. They're very easy to to actually get right, because it's the standards are already there. To be able to make all your software accessible for the blind or low vision, get a screen reader to read it, not hard, and being able to magnify it. You do these two things, you've included 4% of the world population, where more than a third of them are unemployed. All right, now that we have a somewhat of a good sense of what are the who's considered visually impaired, what are the top challenges they face? First of all, one is they have a hard time navigating the built environment. Signs, texts are not accessible. Now let's bring this into your office. One thing you can do is just offer assistance with navigation. Um, Second is they cannot see digital and electronic surfaces, computer screens, mobile devices, or read printed materials. So all you need is just one accessibility expert to come and make sure that printed content is available online. Third is finding jobs is a big challenge for them. And a big part of it is because of the misconceptions. Many companies don't know how to accommodate candidates who are visually impaired or may not be aware of the skills they possess. I'll give you a simple example. If, God forbid, I lost my eyesight tonight and I learn how to use screen readers, by tomorrow, would I not be able to do the exact same jobs or give the exact same talk that I'm giving today? I would. Blind people can do just about the vast majority of jobs, including computer programming, including building presentations and work on Excel, and most jobs can be done by blind individuals. Actually, I have a friend who actually plays blind baseball. There's a thing called blind baseball. That's a whole other story. So, how do you address this challenge? Challenge perceptions and assumptions. Be willing to be patient and make the right accommodations for a blind person. Now, what are the top 3 challenges hiring managers face? We touched upon the first one, which is limited knowledge about what a blind and low vision person can perform. I can assure you, and many of them can assure you, that they can do just most jobs in sight that people can. So, misconception, just myth. Second is knowing how to provide the right accommodation. If you go to askjan.org, so it's a free resource called the Job Accommodation Network, then you'll be able to find the right accommodations that people need. Then third is, how do you create accessible documents and communications for people with low vision or who are blind? Then it just takes a little extra time to understand how to format for accessibility. But if you try, for example, Microsoft's built-in accessibility checker in their Office products, you'll have everything you need. All right, now that we've covered the top challenges, and you're like, okay, that's not too hard, let's do it. I went on askjan.com, I read through it, I'm good to go. Best practices during the interview. So in person and virtual. So when you're meeting someone in person, identify yourself, speak clearly to the candidate, normal pace and volume. Let the candidate know where you're standing or sitting. If you're going to shake hands, tell them that you're extending your hand. Ask the candidate if they need assistance walking to the interview room. It's okay to ask. It's actually encouraged to ask. If the interview involves completing anything online, let them know in advance so that they can use their own devices and assistive technologies to go through it. And if they have a service animal, the service animal is working. Leave it, let it be. Virtual interviews. Webcam may be part of your process, but be flexible with candidates who are blind and low vision in case the webcam is not on or if they're not centered on the screen. Just tell them to turn it a little bit and they'll be all right. If the interviewer is on camera, just be inclusive and provide an image description of yourself. And if you're sharing slides and content, try to voice over. So describe what you're seeing in real time. Just like right now, I'm opening the jobsforhumanity.com website, went to the training and then clicked on blind. And in here, I'm looking at a video with the text that's basically narrating what I'm telling you. Which is interesting because you may not have had this picture in your mind before I told you that I'm reading something and I'm narrating this to you, because you're just seeing me. You're kind of blind to what I'm seeing, right? So the description, as much as it's helped you, when someone can't see permanently, then that's very, very helpful. It just brings a lot of color to everything. Now, when you are interviewing them and you want to look for skill and potential, how do you do that? First things first, don't focus too much on the visual elements of a resume. Content is more important. Screen readers won't always catch spelling mistakes, so it's okay if someone misspells a word like, for example, decorative, they write decorative. Surprise, surprise. That's all right. There are minor errors that could be connected with feedback. Don't hold it against the candidate. And then just listen to the skills that they bring, the soft skills, when you're talking about, tenacity, the ability to persevere. You can ask some examples, and then you'll be stunned by what you hear. And if that's really important for you, that's pivotal. You'll see these skills. If you want timeliness, the ability to collaborate with people in a team, ask about these things, and you'll get a sense of their potential and their skill and how that complements what you're looking for.
But Roy, Roy, let me jump in and ask you, like, these are be a good human tips, but they're also some of the most basic things that you would tell a recruiter who's conducting an interview, or a hiring manager who's bringing somebody in for the first time. So why do you think, in the work and research you're doing this, why the gap here? Like, why do we think that these get missed? Certainly on the front with helping people with special needs or abilities. Like, why such a large gap? Why 10 times the unemployment rate for folks who might be sight impaired?
Two reasons.
It seems extreme to me. Seems super extreme.
It is extreme. Two reasons. I'm going to give you the employer perspective, and then I'll give you the candidate perspective to the best of my knowledge. Keep in mind, I'm always learning. Like tomorrow, I'm actually going to be spending an hour with an accessibility coach and a career coach who is blind, to go over all the content and then see if anything we can improve on anything, and then keep on building it, just to build our knowledge. This proactiveness that I'm showing, is the opposite of that, is the biggest culprit. The biggest gap is because I'm afraid to take a chance. I'm afraid to be wrong. And when you're talking to someone who has such a high unemployment rate, and as you can imagine, it's probably an 80-85% underemployment rate, then take a chance. That'll be super, super, super welcome. They don't often get people who gives them a chance. So if you are listening to this, realize that inactivity is the biggest reason from your side, because all the training is I just shared it, and peer reviewed by the head of learning and accessibility at Spectrum, 70,000 employee company. Thank you, Jerry, through Jen. Tracy, she's introduced me to Stacy, and then also through the career coach that I'm going to meet tomorrow, because he saw the content and told me just about right. So that's all you need. And then on the other side, from a candidate's perspective, and this also goes across all communities, not just the blind, what I'm saying is oftentimes it's when someone doesn't extend a hand to you, you're probably going to try and then stop. At some point, you're going to stop. At some point, you're going to fall behind. At some point, you're going to be with your own group, and the rest of the world is going to be foreign and far from you, because they never learned your language. They never learned to open up to you, and then they're afraid to do that. And then you have this invisible wall for 4% of the population.
The tribalism sort of kicks in.
Yeah, well,
and then we end up sticking with people who are more like us than are not like us.
Well, I also add to the fact that we don't train recruiters around this. There's very few companies that do, and as you pointed out, Chris, sometimes it doesn't stick if you just went through it and didn't actually experience doing it. So one of the key issues, and I did some research years ago in terms of where exactly what Roy just talked about, how accessible that information was as a masterclass. And fundamentally, it does not exist in the United States, other than there's a few folks who can do this, but by and large, it costs significant amount of money. So it's a big training cost. I think a series of master classes on the different types of disabilities and how to interview them more effectively, and then certifying, if you will, recruiters that they get a little certificate that they now learn something, would give them a sense of power in terms of that.
I agree with you, but I'm going to push back a little bit and say that I think if we can hit recruiters all day long, But unless they're in an organization where the recruiter gets to make the hiring decision, it comes back to the hiring managers. And if we don't train the hiring managers in the business units on how to care for even the baseline accommodations, right? The most entry of accommodations. Or I think what is, and Roy, I'm going to go out on a limb here because I haven't done a lot of homework here, but the concern or fear that productivity will be an issue or cost will be an issue for accommodations, if we don't tackle that, I think we can train recruiters until we're blue in the face, and it's not going to make
there's a lot of variables, Chris, and all of them are critical and important. So there's nothing, what you're saying, I agree with 100%, but in part, the choke point starts with the recruiter who is uncomfortable going to a hiring manager. So if the recruiter had more, not only information, confidence, et cetera, and a willingness to step up, we might start moving in the right direction. But
it's chicken and egg. I think.
I know it's chicken and egg. I know. My favorite story is about 10, 12 years ago. I did a panel with about 5 panelists on disability issues related to this. And one of them from Walmart was the head of one of the recruiting teams, and he was blind, totally blind. And we decided to punk the audience of several hundred recruiters because he gave me the slides first. He was the first of the panelists to give me the slides that he needed. So he also had a little box where little things came up so he could read them as Braille. And he memorized, but he also wrote an entire speech around what he would talk about with respect to the slides. So I gave him a clue as to when I was putting his slides up and when I was changing them. So he looked at the screen and then read from this box that he was hiding, and in an incredibly articulate way gave a tremendous presentation about aspects related to blind from a recruiter point of view. And then the audience was totally clueless. And finally, he mentioned, oh, and by the way, I'm totally blind. So, and the audience, you could hear them gasping in the room. So, we need different ways, obviously, to be able to overcome a number of these obstacles. But I'm blown away, Roy, that you're doing this kind of work, not just creating a job board for this, but also engaging recruiters in terms of upskilling their capabilities to obviously deal with this. And I think I've got a bunch of ideas around that, but I'll send you some notes. I'm going to send you some notes, Roy.
I mean, this is at this point my life's work. That's all I'm doing. I launched one of those trainings. The last one we did was with Booking.com. Booking.com's big shout out to Jolie Denboer, who told her team, all right, 21 recruiters joined, got the training. It was specifically for refugees. They really cared about helping Ukrainian refugees find work. So we paired them each with, so we gave them a training, 1-hour training on how to hire refugees. And the nuances are slightly different. Okay, it's not about blindness and low vision, but it is about I think that this person is lesser than, because I have a stigma there, because their English is probably not as good as mine. I look at their resumes formatted differently, so I'm going to think lesser of them. The certifications I don't recognize. They don't have a network. I'm not sure about the legality of being able to hire them.
Sure.
These are the things that trip you, and they're not hard to fix. So once you get past that, and it's not that hard, and besides that, from an onboarding standpoint for a refugee, don't do anything outside of offer them if they want some culture and English lessons from outside, but don't make them stick out like a sore thumb like they're a refugee, because they never asked to be a refugee. They were, Kareem living in this, or, Ksenia living in Ukraine. And now they are in this place with that label. They don't want that label. They never asked for that label. They just want a job and are treated like everybody else. And then maybe some help with English language, because they had to adjust very quickly. But that's that easy. But then you can only really understand your biases when you're automatically paired with a job seeker. So they paired them with 2 job seekers in their field of work, one in their city, the other one in Ukraine. Lo and behold, 6 weeks later, when we checked in for the second time, see how things were going, out of the 42 refugees, 10 of them found jobs, another 20 got interviews. recruiters celebrated, like you can imagine the cohesiveness within that team. They start to love their job again. And then they changed so many lives. And then we asked the job seekers how many dependents on average. It was like 1.5 per. So changed the lives of 40, 50 people in one cohort over 6 weeks. So this is something that we're doing every month now.
And Roy, let me ask you, regardless of which side I'm on, if I'm on the recruiter side or the candidate side, and I want to be part of that sort of reverse recruiting, sort of that initiative that you've got going on, how do I get into play? How do I get to participate?
Just contact us go to jobsforhumanity.com, then contact@jobsforhumanity.com. Let us know. Any job seeker who applies, we ask them if they're interested in being coached. So we have a long list. We obviously have a lot more job seekers. Actually, I was thinking 70,000, we're closing in on 100,000 by the end of this year, and then recruiters. So specifically for recruiters, if you're interested, if you feel like you enjoy diversity and inclusion, and that's an important topic, but you don't feel like you've got the skills yet, we can upskill you and pair you, and then you'll learn those skills within 5-6 weeks. You'd be in a much stronger shape, and you would have literally changed lives.
Well, and is there a cost associated with this for the employee? How does this work?
So far,
if I get involved, budget.
Yeah, so far what we've done so far, we wanted to prove that it works, and we've done it so far for free. But now that we're doing it on a monthly basis, I'm going to hire someone full time to do that, and I'm going to start paying the trainers rather than tell them like, could you help? Like I want to give them, $80 for the training, or $100. So like not very expensive, honestly, and exceptional people. So we'll start putting on a charge to it. We haven't fully digested what exactly that would be, but reach out to us, and we're going to have one cohort after another. And then if an employer wants to come and sponsor this, you'd be better off for it.
All right. I love it. Roy, let me ask you, as we wrap up here, right? And it's the jobsforhumanity.com. Much easier to say than recruiters recruiting recruiters, which now I never fumble on, by the way, but jobsforhumanity.com. We've got some other links we've put in the live chat that'll be in the transcripts. So they can check them out. But let me ask Roy, ask everybody this before we say goodbye and depart on the show. If you were going to write a book about this topic, about the work that you're doing today, Roy, what would you title the book?
Wow. That's a great question. This humanity. Because we're in it for this reason. It's not about changing too many people's lives. It's about changing yourself and being the best person you can be more human, rather than too process driven, and take a step back, be more human, upskill yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself that you can be. And you're literally looking at a person like a human, and giving them a better humanity. So I'll probably call it humanity.
I love that. Roy, who gets the first signed copy?
You get the second. Jerry gets the first. Jerry's my Jerome. Jerome's up there. Jerome Turnick's my mentor. He gets there. He gets.
I just love Jerome. That's the guy that every time I walk away from talking to him, I just feel better about the planet. He's just that guy.
Yeah, Jerome is. I soaked every minute of him managing me, and I just tried to emulate him any chance I get. So if I show any kind of leadership and inspiration, I'm standing on the shoulders of a giant.
Good stuff, man. I love it. I love having you on. We got to have you on more often because it's just fun to catch up with you. And granted, you weren't in a food shack in some other country somewhere in the middle of a jungle, but it was nice to catch up with you in London.
Thank you, Chris. So good to see you, man.
Good stuff. Hang out for a little bit. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to put you in the green room. And Roy, again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks. Such gratitude. Appreciate it. All right. So hang out in there. I just want to share a couple of things really quickly that we've got coming up in the future. Obviously, you can see this. We've got wrapped up with. We've got an internal mobility recruiting meeting that's coming up for our members. We have a solutions spotlight with our dear friend Chris Foreman, who's over at Appcast, obviously coming up November 3rd. If you're in the club, that's right, the book club is back. You can check that out. We're wrapping up the book with Ingenuity, My Life in Full. Fantastic read. I think you can also get it on Audible if you're wanting to read it that way and subscribe to it that way. You can do that. We've got a workshop coming up with Jason Lauritsen, whom we're a big fan of. That's November 10th. And then up next on the podcast is Equitable. And we're super excited about that. We've got Rob and Catherine coming up, and that'll be on November 15th. If you are not already aware, it's cxr.works. If you want to see what we've got ahead, it's cxr.works/events. And if you want to catch more of these podcast shows and see what's ahead, I know this is going to shock you. It's cxr.works/podcast. And until then, we'll see you next time, folks. Hang in there. See you online.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.